And for the record, say and spell your first and last name, please.
Neil, N-E-I-L, Broom, B-R-O-O-M.
Good afternoon, Mr. Broom.
Good afternoon.
How are you employed?
I am the owner and president of Technical Resource Center. We're a computer forensics and cell phone forensics crime lab located in Los Angeles and Orlando.
Do you have any qualifications in relation to that?
Yes, sir. I have a bachelor's degree in computer forensics and digital investigations. I have a master's of science degree in digital forensics lab management. I have multiple certifications, including computer forensics examiner, Cellbrite certified mobile examiner, meaning I can do cell phones, and certified fraud examiner. Fraud.
Mr. Broom, how were you previously employed?
I was a law enforcement officer in Gainesville, Florida, as well as a evidence technician, or what most people commonly call CSI.
Have you conducted any training or teaching in the field of computer forensics?
I have. I've trained over 3,000 people at the CIA, NSA, FBI, all the branches of military, government, law enforcement, in how to do computer forensics and information security, firewalls, routers, things like that, protecting networks.
Do you have any books or published materials in relation to the same subject matter?
I do. I wrote a book co-authored titled Computer Forensics Jumpstart, and it was used as a forensics primer at a couple colleges.
Do you have any professional appointments?
I do. I'm on the Los Angeles County Superior Court panel of expert witnesses in the fields of computer forensics, cell phone forensics, and geolocation mapping analysis.
Have you testified as an expert witness before?
I have, in both federal courts and multiple state courts.
You mentioned you were a Cellbrite certified mobile examiner. Have you analyzed the Cellbrite data extraction for Monica Sementilli's iPhone 7?
Yes, sir.
Has there been more than one Cellbrite data extraction this iPhone?
Yes, sir.
Do you know the years of those different Cellbrite data extractions?
Yes, sir. A 2023 and a 2025 extraction.
Can you explain briefly what a data extraction is in relation to these different years?
Certainly. We have, in the forensics field, tools that you can, basically a computer that you plug a phone into. You then make a forensics image of the phone. After the image is done, you then process the phone, basically churns the data so it gets it so the investigator can review the data. And then when you're done reviewing the data, you can produce a report, and that report is typically called a Cellbrite reader report, and that allows us to give the report to attorneys or detectives to review what forensics work we've done, the answers to the forensics work we've done.
Is it right that one of these was done in 2023 and one was done in 2025?
Correct.
But it's the same underlying phone data?
It's the same underlying phone data, and I actually validated that the specific information that I'm here to talk about did not change. It's exactly the same as it was both years.
Were these extractions done by you or someone else?
It was done by law enforcement. The only investigation I did is on information that was provided to me by the government.
Once there's been an extraction, do you use tools to analyze the data?
Yes, sir. In this case, and in most cases, Cellbrite is the first tool that I use to do cell phone examinations. And then I typically validate the findings I have with another tool that's known as Axiom, A-X-I-O-M, from Magnet Forensics.
Right. Mr. Broom, I want to show you the People's Exhibit 260. Putting that on the overhead for you. Do you recognize this as a portion of the Cellbrite reader report for Monica's iPhone 7?
Yes, sir, I do.
Turning to page 2. Do you see this highlighted entry in blue, web history?
Yes, sir.
Did you undertake your own analysis of these entries?
Yes, sir.
And which data extraction did this come from?
This is from the 2025 data extraction.
Right, let's take a closer look at it in relation to this highlighted entry. What does this show?
So first of all, at the top of the page, you see where it says timeline. This is a report that Cellbrite provides, in this case, a calendar entry of everything that occurred on the phone. And the highlighted line, what we see is one artifact, one piece of data that's known as web history. We all know that as our browser history. And in this case, I can tell by looking over at the right that this is a Safari web browser on the iPhone. And we see an entry for January 22nd, 2016.
From on the right, is it this panel you're referring to,
Correct. And right above where your pen is, it says the word Safari. Just to your right, under source file, a little bit more to your right, it says library and then Safari.
Okay. Right. And sorry, please continue.
Again, January 22nd, 2017 at 5:12 and 51 seconds p.m. And that has a description that says foe near me dash Google search. And what that indicates to me was somebody conducted a Google search on an iPhone for foe near me.
And then underneath, there's a URL. Just briefly, what is a URL?
URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. It's basically what you type into the web browser when you type in www, and then followed by whatever website you want to go to.
So for this 2025 data extraction, it gives a URL for Lifestyle Lounge. Is that what you see here?
That's correct. The M in front of it means it's a mobile website, and then lifestylelounge.com is the name of the website that this entry says it's pointed to.
On the left here, we have a red X. What does that signify?
The red X signifies that this data has been deleted. In other words, the browser history has been cleared, and it's no longer active data on the phone. You couldn't view this data on the phone anymore. Only a forensics investigator can look at it.
Does deleted data differ from non-deleted data in terms of data extractions and analysis of data extractions?
It does. If we have deleted data, the forensics investigator needs to pay particular attention to that type of data because of the way the cell phone tools, I'll use the word resurrect or recreate that data, because remember I just said the data doesn't exist on the phone anymore for the user to see. It's not in a perfect format on the phone anymore. Instead, the analogy that I always use in my training classes is, let's say you had a report sitting on your desk, and multiple page report. You go to lunch, you come back, and the report's gone, and you realize the trash can under your desk is literally right under where the report is. You go find the janitor and you say, did you take out the trash? He's like, yeah. He's like, did you remember seeing a big old report on the top? He's like, yes, sir. Then you run downstairs to the dumpster, and you crawl in the dumpster and pull your big old report out. When you pull that report out, you could have a couple possibilities. All the pages could be perfect in straight order, no copy stains, everything's perfect. That would be sort of what we would find when we found a live file on a phone. On the other hand, you could have pages that were correct order, not messed up. You could have pages that were completely missing. You could have pages that were garbled up, copy stains, things like that. And I'm going to push the analogy just a little bit for this last example, but it's necessary for explaining electronic information. You could have one page that was data at the top, or information at the top, and the bottom of that same page be from a different page. So in other words, it combined two pages together. It looks like one page, but it's really the top of one page and the bottom of another one. That's what we get when we are resurrecting files, and specifically we use the term data carving. We carve the files out of where they were stored at on the device.
So is there any additional analysis you need to undertake to double check that that carving has been carried out correctly?
Yes, sir. So first and foremost, you obviously would look at the data that's presented in the report and see if it makes common sense. Does this piece of data give you a piece of evidence that passes a smell test, that makes it look like it's legit? You also would then, in every instance that I could possibly think of, utilize a different forensics tool to validate the results of the first tool. If both tools, using the different built-in capabilities of the tool, look at the same piece of evidence and produce the same results, then you know both tools are doing the same thing, doing the right job. The evidence is valid. If, on the other hand, one tool shows one thing, the other tool shows something else, then you have a problem.
What about looking at different data extraction from a different year?
Absolutely. If you have more than one extraction, which, by the way, totally valid concept, I always recommend if you have a case that started a long time ago and the evidence was originally looked at, say, years ago, that as you get closer to trial, you re-examine the evidence and see what you find. The reason for that is the evidence doesn't change. Everybody does what they're supposed to do with the evidence. We know it's the same piece of evidence as it was in multiple years ago. But what does change is the tools are constantly being upgraded. The tools are constantly being improved. Tools are constantly being changed. We all know as users of computers that change is great until it's not. Sometimes when you change a tool, you break something. And so you do have to be careful when you have your tools and they upgrade that it does everything it was supposed to do and doesn't break something that it was already working great.
So a tool from a different year could extract the data and give a different result from another year?
That's correct. We hope not, but it has happened.
And just to confirm, you also looked at another entry. This is now page 4 of People's Exhibit 260. Do you recognise this?
I do.
Later time entry at 5:45:35 on January 22nd, 2017.
Yes, sir, I do.
This shows the same information, Fur Near Me, linked to a Lifestyle Lounge URL, is that right?
That's correct.
Also deleted.
Yes,
right?
sir.
So the same issues may arise when it's deleted. Right?
Yes, sir.
Well, did you look at a different data extraction? Actually, yeah, we'll start there. Did you look at a different data extraction for another year for these same entries?
Yes, sir, the 2023 data extraction. Celebrate report.
Your Honour, I have here 10 pages from Monica's iPhone 7 data extraction, if I may mark it as defence exhibit, I believe it's 631.
Yes, so on.
Showing you page 1 of defence exhibit 631. Do you recognise this as the 2023 data extraction for Monica's iPhone 7?
Yes, sir.
And it's looking at the same time entry, is that right?
That's correct. In this particular entry, we're no longer looking at the timeline, the calendar function. Instead, we're looking at the Safari web history. So it's just a subset of what was on the calendar before. Again, it's the same entry for 5:12 and 51 seconds. Has a title of Phone Near Me Google search. That means a Google search was done for the words phone near me. And then it has URL, but this time the URL points to a Google search with the results phone near me. In other words, the Google page came up with the results of a search phone near me. In the previous examples we looked at, the search for phone near me came up with the results of Lifestyle Lounge.
You talked about doing a smell test, so using common sense. What did that tell you looking at these two different data entries?
If you do a Google search, you would expect the results that pop up to be the results of that search. Doing a Google search for phone near me and having the results pop up for Lifestyle Lounge just doesn't make sense.
So we have a 2023 extraction that says phone near me Google search linked to a Google URL. We have a 2025 extraction saying phone near me Google search but linked to a Lifestyle Lounge URL. So they're at odds, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
Why could that be? How could that be from your understanding of the data?
As I stated before, the tools change over time. The evidence stays the same. So I would put the blame on the tool being different than it was back in 2023.
And correct me if I'm wrong, is it essentially, it's in the way that a new tool resurrects or extracts this data, it might link together data differently than a previous tool?
That's correct.
Did you notice any other, sorry actually, before I move on, page 2 of Defence Exhibit 630, this is then the corresponding entry at 5:45:35, January 22nd, 2017. This is also showing phone near me Google search, and this is also showing a Google URL, not a Lifestyle Lounge URL, correct?
That's correct.
I think you're referring to 631, Counsel.
I'm so sorry, 631, that's correct.
Correct.
Did you notice any other issues in the data like this from reviewing the 2025 extraction?
I did.
And do you recognize this as a page from the 2025 extraction of Monica's iPhone 7?
Yes, sir.
Did you notice any similar issues in the data from reviewing this?
Yes, if you look at the bottom line on the left, you see a search for Google Maps. This time the search was for EZGTR, and the resulting URL is a URL for Google Maps faux plus CA, meaning California. So a Google Maps search for something specifically called EZGTR gave a result of faux plus California. That doesn't pass the smell test. However, if you look at the URL directly above that line, you'll see Google Maps places EZGTR. So in other words, the URL for the line above is the correct answer to the Google Maps search for EZGTR. So this is another glitch that was in the Celebrate Reader report.
There's another way to put it, in resurrecting the data for these entries, it's mixed up
Correct.
these two pieces.
Correct.
And this is for the 2025 extraction.
That's correct.
Now, did you analyze the 2025 extraction with any other software?
I did.
Any other tools?
I did. As I mentioned earlier, I also used Magnet Forensics Axiom program.
Showing you page 4, Defense Exhibit 631. Is this the Axiom tool, looking at the same data set?
It is.
And did you look for these entries at these specific times?
I did.
And what did you find?
I could not find an entry for 512, and as we'll see on the next page, 545. There were no entries from Axiom for the same two entries that have been in question.
So just to be absolutely clear, we see entries at 446.48, 513.06, but not one where you'd expect to see the in-between time.
Correct, at 512.
And the same here is now page 5, Defense Civic 631. There's entry at 518.58, and entry at 546.32, but no entry in between.
Correct, no entry at 545.
What does that tell you?
That a second tool did not produce the same results as Celebrate did.
What does that tell you about the entry Google search for near me linked to Lifestyle Lounge?
That you should not trust that entry. It's a glitch. It's not a true and factual, validated finding.
Right, showing you page 6 of Defense Exhibit 631. What is this?
So when we, as a forensics investigator, look at the evidence, we don't just look at the reports that I've been showing you previous. We have the ability to drill down and look at views of the evidence like this. What this is a hexadecimal representation of the data that was stored on the phone. And if you look on the right side of the page, you can make out the English language words, www.google.com, search, the Q stands for the word query, and then it's a query for faux plus near plus me. So in other words, that Celebrate report we looked at before that showed a Google search with the answer being faux near me, this is what it actually looks like on the phone when the forensics investigator looks at the data.
This is the underlying data, is that a fair way to say?
Correct. It's the underlying data that makes the Celebrate reader report.
And that is then interpreted by the reader for the 2025 extraction.
That's correct. Which is given to attorneys or lawyers, attorneys or detectives to review.
Right. So from your analysis of the data, the entry for near me Google search linked to a URL Lifestyle Lounge, should that be relied upon?
No, it should not.
From your analysis of the data, is there any reliable data you found that shows a link between for near me Google search and Lifestyle Lounge on January 22nd, 2017?
No.
Just one quick last point. We talked about how these entries were deleted. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
From your analysis of the data, was there other web history that was deleted on Monica's iPhone 7?
Yes, there was.
Were there specific web history entries that were deleted, or more than that? What was your analysis?
More than that. Actually, the only web history that remained on the phone was for June 14th, 2017. All of the previous data history had been cleared. That's the term that Apple uses. You can go into your browser history, hit a button that says clear browser history, and now the browser history is gone off of the phone. After you do that, the only data that remains is any new data that's added after that. So the phone was cleared sometime between or near June 14th, 2017. All the data prior to that was deleted. So it wasn't a selective, only one thing was deleted, everything was deleted.
We can see that here on the web history. This is page 7 of Defense Exhibit 631. Do you see this? Do you recognize this as the web history from Monica's iPhone 7?
I do, and one thing to point out is right next to the word web history, it says 9679. That's how many different rows of entries there had been, and all but, I believe it was 17, were deleted. So all the data was deleted except the one date of June 14th, 2017.
And this red yes under deleted here means this entry was deleted, correct?
That's correct.
And as you said, there were many items that were deleted, showing you page 9 from her web history, Defense Exhibit 631. Here, these are searches, web history from target.com linked to buying printer ink, is that right?
Yes, sir.
These were deleted web history entries, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm showing you page 10. There is web history relating to Maggiano's Italian food restaurant. This is something else that's deleted, for example, from the web history.
Correct.
Right. I have no further questions, Ron.
You may proceed.
Okay, I'm going to take it down on a layperson level, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I think I'm going to assume that most people aren't as techie, that's not an offensive word, but tech-related as you. So there's no question then, you're not here testifying that that phone that we've already heard testimony that's been associated with the defendant was searching phone near me at 5:12 p.m. on January 22nd, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So there's no question here that phone near me, and it's blue, it's hard to see, there's a search starting at 5:12, multiple searches it looks like from different phone numbers. That's not in question. You're not disputing that the phone near me, that part isn't glitchy, right? That one's right.
That's correct. I do have to give one slight clarification.
Go ahead.
The user of the phone did not do the Google search. The Google search was sent to that phone via text message.
Okay. Right, we've heard evidence of that. So that came to the phone number then that we've already attributed to the defendant from a search from her husband. So we've already been through that. Now, the question is, you said that you analyzed, well, Celebrate, let's just start with Celebrate. Just as a refresher, Celebrate then is a company basically that allows for law enforcement and various government agencies to extract data from a phone, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then when you get that data, you plug it into a machine. I'm being very simple here. Data comes out, but a normal person that doesn't understand it can't read it. It's like ones and zeros and things like that, right?
Correct, and that's sort of the highlighted yellow screen I showed with the hexadecimal view. That's what we can see forensically.
So that's where you come into play, is that you are skilled in analyzing that data and putting it into a readable format.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that fair? And with that, then you testify. Do you use Celebrate Reader?
The program that's used to analyze the data is actually called Celebrate Physical Analyzer.
Mm-hmm.
You then determine what information is important to your investigation. You highlight, bookmark those pieces of information, and then you generate a report of just the important information, and that report is then sent to Celebrate Reader, and I can send the Celebrate Reader data and application as a package to an attorney or to a detective to then be able to open up and review the data without having to have the full version of the tool that I pay for. The Celebrate Reader is a free version Celebrate gives so that we can pass it to the end user, being the attorneys or the detectives.
So by the time the detectives or the attorneys get it, then it's in normal form, like what we see, what we've been presenting in court, where we can see a search, it says phone near me, we can That makes sense now.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
kind of fair? All right. So when you talked about you are able then to search for what's important to the investigator, that means you can put in certain parameters for what you're looking for necessarily and kind of tailor the data specifically to what you're looking for.
That's correct. That's what
Okay.
the forensics person in the forensics lab does. Anybody knows, there's literally millions of items of data on a device, and that you can't keep track of that forever. You have to figure out what's important to your case and highlight just those pieces of information and then provide that to the attorneys or the detective.
Okay. So you're saying then, your testimony, why you're here to testify, is that when you ran it in 2020, well, you didn't run it, you ran it recently.
Correct.
You analyzed it recently, I should say. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you used what you said physical analyzer, which means the tool that makes it make sense, makes it in a readable format.
Yes, ma'am.
So you did it in 2023, and in 2023, the 2023 phone number, right? And you didn't see a link from Phone Near Me you didn't see this, where it's linked to Lifestyle Lounge in your 2023 run.
I need to slightly correct one thing you
Go
said.
ahead.
I didn't do it until this week actually. But the extraction was an extraction the government made in 2023, did not contain the link to Lifestyle Lounge. The extraction the government did for 2025 did contain the Lifestyle Lounge entry.
Okay. So do you know, or were you aware that when LAPD presented this to the defense and ran it in 2023, this is how it appears from law enforcement with the Lifestyle Lounge link based on the reader that they were using in 2023? Do you understand that?
No, ma'am, I do not. The data that I was provided for 2023 did not say Lifestyle Lounge. It said the Google search answer.
Right, but you used your own reader to run it, right?
No, ma'am, I used the reader that, I remember I said that you have Cellbrite Reader, that you have the data and the application. That's exactly what I had, the data and the application that had been provided to me by the government.
But when the government ran it, it has Lifestyle Lounge, but when you ran it, you're saying you can't find that there.
That's correct. The 2023 extraction doesn't say Lifestyle Lounge in the copy that I was provided by the government.
Now, did you also know that the government, looking at the government, but you mean LAPD, right?
Absolutely.
So LAPD also ran it, the same data in 2020. Did the defense, when they hired you to come here, give you the 2020 results as well?
They did.
Okay, so on the 2020 results, again, the Lifestyle Lounge came up linked close to this phone near me on the 2020 dump from LAPD also.
I can't answer that one. I did not get to get a chance to run that one.
Okay, so you didn't, they gave it to you, but you didn't look at 2020 to see if anything was consistent.
Correct, because I'd already found an inconsistency between 23 and 25. What 2020 would have said really doesn't matter at that point. I can't trust that evidence because it was wrong on one of the two.
So you're just said, forget it, no tiebreaker. Like, I'm going to go with two different versions, and I don't care what happened before.
Well, the tiebreaker was when I looked at the hexadecimal version. That's the tiebreaker.
Okay.
And the tiebreaker shows that the entry should have been a Google search for Phone Near Me. Logic says if you search for a Google search for Phone Near Me, the answer would be a Google search for Phone Near Me.
All right. So then you were aware when you started that the defense told you that in 2020, 2023, and a phone dump again, run again in 2025, all came up from the government, LAPD detectives with the same exact result. You knew that when you started your analysis. That's why you went back to see if you could find or look for a discrepancy, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So do you believe that your 2023 phone dump, your reader that you're using, was the most updated version?
So I used the government's version first, and then I updated to the most recent version of Cellbrite Reader and used that one. And both of the times that both the old version and the new version both showed the same answer.
Okay. But then in 2025, you saw it again there. Is that right?
Yes.
So what you see on the screen, you saw the most recent while we've been in trial, and now you saw it again.
In 2025, I see the Lifestyle Lounge.
And then you testified that as it gets closer to trial, it's a good idea to re-examine the evidence because tools are constantly being upgraded, right?
Absolutely.
So 2025 seems like it would be the most reliable, correct? Because we're in trial. It's the most updated version of the reader of the same exact data phone dump, right?
So the data was exactly the same. I confirm that. However, as I stated, sometimes when they update tools, they break things. And so my explanation would be Celebrite, unfortunately, broke the way it does the data carving in this particular version of the Celebrite Reader tool.
So, but it wasn't broken it was broken 2025, but it wasn't broken 2023 when you ran it. It's got to be broken 2025, the most updated version.
That's correct.
Okay. Does that mean it was glitchy in 2025?
I would say between the this entry and the ZGTR entry that also is glitchy, then yes, it would still be glitchy.
Was it glitchy in 2020 also then?
I can't speculate on that
Oh,
one.
because you didn't look at 2020.
Correct.
Okay. And then the Lifestyle Lounge then, when you look at that URL though, you can see that it's directly in line with Phone Near Me. It's a Google search. The web history is directly in line with Lifestyle Lounge. If you read across the line, it says member ID. There's a number, then it says chat ID. So it appears to be that URL would be a direct way to log right into a website, right? Because there's a member ID and a chat ID, something of that nature, right?
Yes, the URL that is listed here would be exactly what you just said. However, I can't tie that URL to the date 1/22/2017 at 5:12.
But you can't not tie it either, right?
Yes, I can not tie it.
So you're not
correct
here
in
to
question.
say that it's not possible that that Phone Near Me search was somehow linked to Lifestyle Lounge. You're not here to say that with definity, right?
On what date?
Well, the only date that's up there, 1/22.
Yes, I can definitively say at 5:12 on 1/22 there was not an entry for Lifestyle Lounge.
And we're looking at the 2025 dot. Are you still basing this on your glitchiness from 2023?
I'm basing this on the 2025 hexadecimal view of the data that I used.
I don't think anyone knows what that means.
The page that was up that had the highlighting and all the numbers and letters, that was the hexadecimal view. The detail that the forensics investigator gets to look at.
Okay, I don't think anyone knows what that means, but so we're at Phone Near Me, and then we get to Lifestyle Lounge. It's all linked right here in line. But your opinion is that there's no way those two are related, even though we're looking right at them on the screen on a printout from Celebrite Extraction, right?
If you do a Google search for Phone Near Me, the answer is not Lifestyle Lounge.
Okay.
The answer for Phone Near Me in a Google search would be Phone Near Me results.
Right. But for sure there was a search for Phone Near Me.
Done by the victim, yes.
And by the way, when were you hired on this case?
In 2023, but I was only brought back up to speed last Thursday.
And did you get paid for being here?
Yes, ma'am.
How much did you get paid?
I've been paid a $5,000 retainer so far.
Thank you. Oh, wait, I have one question. You said so far. What does that mean, so far?
I haven't billed for my time in the last week.
So $5,000 plus coming to court today to testify. Is that fair?
Plus my investigative time last weekend.
And I understand it's a business, so I'm not trying to insult you on that. And then so you have your time that you consulted, so $5,000 plus time consulting, plus your time to come to court today to testify that Phone Near Me could not possibly be linked to Lifestyle Lounge.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Just very briefly, Your Honor.
We're all looking at this same page, aren't we? What is written on this piece of paper on this page, as everyone can see, is Phone Near Me URL Lifestyle Lounge, right?
Yes, sir.
What's written on this page could be completely wrong from your analysis, right?
In my opinion, it is completely wrong.
And you've looked at the underlying data, which is the hexadecimal data, correct?
Correct.
And what did that tell you this entry should be?
Again, a Google search for Phone Near Me should give a URL result of Google Phone Near Me.
And that is exactly what is shown in the 2023 extraction report. Yes?
Correct.
That's this, isn't it?
Correct.
Right. No further questions.
Anything further about the people? Thank you, Broom, and you're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Any further next witness?
I am now the custody of May I get him?
Please.